All right, let's talk about a new development. We have, they're putting the band back together. We had Governor Engler and Mr. Blanchard. We had Mike Bishop, the former Senate Republican leader, and John Cherry, former Lieutenant Governor, part of a national group that is going to bird dog the rhetoric from these campaigns. Rots a ruck. Make no mistake, over the years, former Governors Jim Blanchard and John Engler, along with former Lieutenant Governor John Cherry and Senate Republican leader Mike Bishop, all four of them have had their political disagreements. But they are definitely united on this assignment, wanting to debunk the notion that the fall election may not be on the up and up.
But we come here to call out any politician, Democrat or Republican, or any organization that's intent on sowing doubt and distrust about this very foundation to a democratic society, which is the electoral process.
This bipartisan reunion of sorts comes at a time when former President Trump is still questioning the last election, and Republican Mike Bishop argues, let's move forward.
I believe that our country is at a crossroads, and if we don't unify behind a shared vision, we will continue to dwell in the past. And I think it's a big mistake to relitigate the results of the previous election.
And Governor Engler advises all candidates to not plant the seeds before the election, suggesting that the outcome may be rigged. Is that counterproductive to the goal of this group?
Sure, it is. It's counterproductive to the candidate, I believe. I wouldn't say to, Mr. Trump or the people around him or anybody else that, it's rigged before it's even been held.
These four politicians and their staffs will monitor the statements of candidates, and when necessary, they will step in to try to refute any claims about alleged unfair voting.
So we want to make sure that when people raise the idea that elections are rigged or not accurate or there's fraud, that we can make sure everything is investigated, but we will beat it down.
Michigan joins other swing states in bird dogging the voting with this special bipartisan Protect the Democracy project. Some will say this is a noble assignment. How are they going to pull this off?
Well, I'm not sure we quite understood that at the end of that hour-long press conference yesterday.
Which was supposed to be 30 minutes.
Yes. But it sounds like these folks, these former leaders from Michigan, are making themselves available. If there is an issue, if there are allegations about the election, that they're going to come forward and swat them down and say, no, this has been investigated, this is what it means, or there was an audit here, and this is why we can say that this process worked the way it did. So I think they're just making themselves available as former leaders of this state who may or may not have continued influence on people's thoughts on the election. I think even they acknowledge maybe people won't respect what we have to say at the end of the day. Maybe we are kind of from the past of the state, but they're also saying, or we can be a respected voice out there talking about the integrity of Michigan's election system and the people who put it together.
I think it speaks to how a lot of public officials on both sides of the aisle saw what happened in 2020, saw the destabilization that happened, and are really trying to avoid that in 2024. I think everyone who covered or observed the 2020 election and its aftermath in any capacity, a lot of people were disturbed by how long and how pervasive a lot of these claims about the election were. We may not know exactly how this group of former elected officials is going to address some of the concerns coming up or anything that could come up in the future. But, it does speak to their interest in nipping it in the bud.
No offense to Mr. Engler, but I do not think the hardcore MAGA crowd is going to be persuaded by a former establishment Republican. Trump has moved the party beyond the John Englers of the world. In fact, after the 2020 election, when Trump was claiming the election was rigged, John Engler told me, Rick Snyder, another former Republican governor, told me the election should be certified. It's over. And that still didn't change the mind of a lot of people because January 6th happened after that. Sounds like an interesting cause. I'm not sure how persuasive these folks are going to be. I also think it puts Mike Bishop in particular in an awkward position. he is working for the Michigan Republican Party, which is right now is suing Jocelyn Benson over several election administration rules, and in the process making some pretty provocative statements about her ability to manage a fair election.
He is legal counsel for the party, but he says he's not involved in the politics. He's doing the law.
Well, the lawsuits are political.
Oh, really? Okay, I had not. Let me write that down.
I think it was a proactive move. I think it may turn out to be more important to have those voices after the election than leading up to the election, because we can all pretty much be sure that no matter how this election turns out, whoever ends up being the winner and the loser, according to the popular vote and the Electoral College, it's going to be challenged in some way, shape, or form. And one side or another is going to say the system is broken, the system didn't work. And these are people that we can go to. These are all four people who were a part of this electoral system. They won and they lost through this system. And they are saying in Michigan, it has been proven that the system has worked and all the legal challenges last time around didn't mount up to anything. I don't think they're worried necessarily about trying to change the mega crowd out there, because I think it's probably not going to change. But it's that swath in the middle that may be still questioning whether or not the system is really fair. That may be a time when those voices are needed more than ever before.
I sort of sat back as that hour unfolded, and I kept thinking to myself, this is the way it used to be. Mm-hmm. There used to be political cooperation between both parties. They had their differences, but they were able at the end of the day to put those aside and do something that perhaps helped the people out. But the idea of the cooperation of the four of them coming together, and look at, they've had their battles. Look at John Engler and Jim Blanchard were arch rivals, okay? And Mr. Blanchard took that loss, as you all know, in that gubernatorial thing very hard. But here these two guys now are back there, they're Mutt and Jeff, they're laughing and scratching and having a good time, and they're doing something that they believe in. And it just struck me that it was a period of time that was certainly different than the stuff that we're covering now.
Yeah. But Blanchard never said the system, the electoral system, robbed me. Yeah, he was upset with John Engler, and John Engler out-campaigned him, and he won by a whisker. But it was an upset. But he never said the things that you hear Donald Trump now saying in the middle of a high presidential debate about what happened 4 years ago after it's been litigated.
Yeah, let's be clear. Trump has not only continued to claim the 2020 election was rigged, he has said multiple times in this campaign that the only way Democrats will win is if they cheat. So he is already saying the same things that he said in 2020.
Right.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we have two minority